Talk, and if you could put your mics on green, please. Oh, thank you. I'd like to call to order the regularly scheduled EPW meeting for November 20th. And before we do the invocation, I'd like to get a motion to amend the meeting to add closed session as described here, 610-0212, to discuss real estate. And the reason for the addition is due to a request sent to the administration to add on the item after the agenda was posted. So can I get a motion for that?
So moved.
Agenda. And a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye? Okay. Aye. All right, motion carries. So we'll start with the invocation. Lord, give us the patience and fairness consideration to proceed with diligence to come to conclusions that benefit each other and the ratepayers of the Board of Public Works. We trust in your wisdom and are inspired by your grace in all we do here and our everyday lives. Thank you for all the gifts we are entrusted with. In your name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, you have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And comments from the audience? Thank you. Comments from the audience, we have Martin Coker signed up. So,
I had nothing to say, I just thought it was a registration for.
Oh. Okay, that's fine.
Unless you want me to talk, I can talk.
I know.
So can we.
Do we have any comments from anyone else that's not signed up? Okay. Having heard none, I guess we go straight to Darren's general manager report.
All right. We've got a couple items that are of great interest here, but I've got a couple of things that I do want to share from my report. If you can put that up there. First of all, I would like to talk about energy capacity and some of the things that have gone on inside the MISO market. Every year, what happens is MISO goes out and they take a look at the amount of generation and they look at the amount of need. With that number, they come up with a cost for the capacity as part of what we pay for our electric bill. What they have looked at, it's called the 2023 Regional Resource Assessment. MISO, and we'll show this in about the third slide, MISO reaches from Canada all the way down to Texas, and we're in Region 5. We're right in the middle, and all of us play together on our national grid, if you want to look at it that way. What they have looked at is the next 10 years of what's going to be happening with the generation and the generation availability inside of MISO. Now, you've got to be able to look at the colors here. Go back that one, hold it right there. If you look to the far left, there's gray. That gray represents coal generation. The next is the blue, and the blue is natural gas generation. That little orange sliver on the left-hand side, that's nuclear. And then you come to green. Green happens to be wind. Yellow happens to be solar. And the red is battery. Now, what we're looking at here is the different zones for the entire average, looking at it all the way to 2042. And if you look at it, and this on the left-hand side are retirements. Those are negatives. That means in the next several years, we're going to see the coal plants and natural gas plants going away. They're being mothballed. What they're being replaced with is on the right side of that line. You will see that while we have a pretty good chunk on that first year, all of it is solar and yellow, wind and green, and the blue is natural gas. As they've looked at it, and I'll show you another picture here, almost everything that's being built is renewable. And another thing that I simply bring into question is they have up there a battery. While the government has said that they can count that as generation, how many batteries actually create electricity? All they do is hold it and then discharge it. So if I'm looking at that, I would take the red, and very skeptically is how I look at it. I question how much reliability we're going to be getting in our system in the near future, or more importantly, per the report, in the distant future. So let's go ahead and go to the second frame. This is a linear graph taking a look at what it's going to look like for the next 10 years. The top line is, again, the generation assets that are coming in, and that's the capacity. That on the bottom is what they call accredited capacity. When it comes to generation, if you have a turbine that's spinning, such as a coal turbine, there's a piece of metal that is spinning. You've got steam, there's coal that's burnt, it creates steam, and that steam pushes that turbine and it's spinning. And there's energy in that, and it's taking, and it goes through coil, it goes through things to create electricity. In solar, there is nothing spinning. When the sun doesn't shine at night, when the sun doesn't shine because of clouds, you don't get any electricity. And you're only going to get it at the daylight hours. Wind is a little different. It's only going to generate when the wind's blowing. But again, there's nobody out there that can 100% say that those renewables are going to give you electricity when you need it. And so they're showing right here for the first 2 years, from 2022 to 2024, 25, that's where that peak is. What they have done is they have actually slowed the mothballing, the taking offline some of the coal power. And with that, we get a little bump right there. They're still saying we're going to have enough power through 2025 that we're okay. But from there, things start to go downhill. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Again, this is the entire MISO footprint. You'll see that there's Ameren, and we're number 5. We're a little splotch right there in the middle. That's good old Missouri. Let's go ahead and go to the next. And remember that number 4 is Illinois, and Illinois is actually where we have our coal generation from Prairie State. This is a breakdown of Zone 5. So we're looking simply more granular at what's exactly inside the state of Missouri on the MISO footprint. Again, I would ask you to take a look on that line. Left-hand side, you've got coal coming off and natural gas coming off. You come down, you got a 1.2 gigawatt, and then you come on down, 0.6 more blue, natural gas, more coal, more natural gas. Everything that's coming off in the next 10 years to 2040 and 2041 is all coal and natural gas coming off. What do we have being built? Look to the right. It's yellow, yellow, green, yellow, yellow, green, yellow, yellow, green. Finally, in 2031, we have 1.2 gigawatts of natural gas. Then you come back down, you continue to go with solar, wind, and battery. So in the next 10 years or more, inside the state of Missouri, we are having reliable power go away and renewables being built, other than in 2031 where we do have one natural gas. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. This is another visual, but this kind of looks at everybody. And what I like to look at, what I think of, is that when you look at Zone 4, which is Illinois, where we're right next to, and we're Zone 5, that gap between the accredited capacity and the future base load is there's gaps, and those gaps are exactly what we have concerns for. You'll see that Zone 5, we've got a gap. Zone 4 has an even greater gap. Almost all of them have a gap except your zone 8 and zone 10s and zone 9. But these are the things that we're having to watch, and this paints, for me, a very serious concern. Again, the one on the left, 5-year gap, one on the right is a 10-year gap. Let's go ahead and go to the next. Again, we look at natural gas, what they're saying with natural gas on the larger scale. So they're saying we kind of have an equal retirement and construction of natural gas generation. It's kind of holding its own. But with the loss of the coal, you can see that very first year of 2025, that delayed coal retirement, it simply slows down that reduction. The other concern I'll show you is that while we're down about the negative 30, recognize that this is in gigawatts. If you go online and Google gigawatts, how many houses can you run on 1 gigawatt of power? If an average home is 10,000, that's a small one, that's very small, it will run about 865,000 homes. That's 1 gigawatt. That's us times many, many, many times. I'm not quick enough on the math there. But when we're talking a shortfall in the 10 to 20 gigawatt realm, what we anticipate is in the regular market where you have supply and demand, what they're anticipating for the next 10 years is that demand is going to far outpace supply moving forward. Now, this is a report that we just received recently. We've gone through it. We've heard it from MPUA, who had a representative at the meeting where it was presented. We have some things to look at. Some of the things we're looking at is generation. We have General Mills that's talking to us. We're trying to see if we can add some generation there, a cogeneration where they take the steam, we're able to provide electricity. Perhaps that's something that when it comes to fruition, we may add some costs in that to additional generation. It's something that we will look at, see what's the most economical, what will serve the community the best. Another option that we're looking at and considering is hedging for the capacity costs. So it would at least go out and save some of those costs. We've seen how that capacity has escalated. Last year hit us heavy. We've managed it with hedging. We've brought that cost down, and so we can maintain our current rates. Perhaps we want to look at a 10-year hedge. We're going to be looking at those things, and we'll come back to you as a board as we get more information on that. So again, the next 2 years, we kind of see we're right on that edge. The next is not quite as sure. Let's go to the last slide, if you would. Now, the other thing is, today, we see, I hope I've scared every one of you here, because it scares me, okay? This is not good news. But all of this can change. When you have these things, you see those open markets, hopefully there's somebody out there in a group that's saying, all right, here's an opportunity. We see in the industry people talking about nuclear, SMRs, small modular reactors, I believe, that are inside the Illinois footprint, that they're actually considering that. My question is, how long will it take for that to come to fruition? My guess is it might take that 10 years for that to happen. What happens between now and then? Where is the natural gas? Where is the other actual generation that has a spinning turbine on it? There's not a lot of unsettled questions, so it's tough to get people into the market. Solar and wind is quick and easy to get in the ground, but we've got some things that are coming up that it's going to be very, very tough. So the market is getting difficult. We are watching it. We have our consultants helping us. We hope to be coming back to you soon with some answers as to what we're going to do going forward. But I hate to say it to everybody, but there's definite upward pressure on our rates and what's happening. And much of this has to do with that new trendy electrification of America, where we're being pushed into a direction, I think, a little bit faster than we're capable of reacting. Any questions on that? Do I have anything else on there? I think that's it, right? Thank you. That's all I have under the capacity question.
Do you have any other highlights of the general manager report you want to cover?
I do. I'll be very fast. Solar field, we're still moving on it. Matt Munzinger's done a great job. We have people in there we've gotten access to it, and we're doing the geological survey right now. And so that's moving forward. We anticipate that we'll still ultimately get 2 to 3 megawatts of power. That's going to be behind the meter, which means we're going to use all of that power ourselves. And what we're going to do is we're going to take that power and divide it amongst every single one of our customers equally and be able to have that savings come to every single customer equally. It's not one group or one individual that's going to take that power and take advantage of it. So all of Hannibal will be benefited by that. I also have in here a paragraph or so on stormwater. We're going to come on that again, so I'll come back to it. We've got Erica Mitchell has been doing a great thing with the outreach. Specifically, she's gone to the Rawls County schools and have been talking to some of the students there, I believe, and inviting them to consider utilities in their future. So she's done a great job. We also have Beverly with our HR, who's done. We're looking for still a water operator for the water plant, and we're getting an assistant for her. We've had interviews, and we've got some excellent talent there that we're looking to make an offer to. And that's all I have for the general manager's report.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions about the report?
No.
Okay, thanks very much, Darren. All right, moving right along to operations. Matt?
Hold it. Yep, Bill.
Hold on.
Uh-oh.
So do we have any idea what the new mayor's plans are for the airport?
No, I do not.
So I know he's got an expansion that he put on his platform when he ran for mayor. So I didn't know if anybody had heard anything from him or not.
I have not. Thank you, but we will check on that and find out.
Okay, thank you.
The area we're proposing for the solar field wouldn't have any impact on a runway expansion. It's off to the east side, and we're maintaining approximately 500 feet of space between center line of the runway and anything that would be installed.
Matt, was that something that is not going to impact us?
That is correct. It will not impact us.
Okay, cool. That's what I was wanting to know.
Yeah, the long-term airport layout plan as approved simply extends the north side of the runway straight out. And it wouldn't affect the place we're talking about putting the solar. All right, thank you. And Matt, your operations report, please.
All right, on the electrical side of things, last month we had more than doubled the outages from September, though the number of outage minutes was actually less than we saw in September. Majority of them were animal related. Out of the 25, 11 of them were either squirrel or bird related. We did have 4 that were related to trees. Nothing really in the right of way. We had some trees that fell through the right of way and took out our line, and so we don't have access to those trees to trim like we do if they were within the right of way footprint. Electric crew worked to make some of the area more accessible, or the lines more accessible down on the south side, the Highway 79, Crescent Street, Martin Street, that area of town. So we were coming up to needing to replace those poles. So they made them put the poles in an area where we could access them with a bucket truck, eliminate some tree interactions and such. And so just overall improve the efficiency should we have to restore power to those areas. Water plant, we did our annual basin cleaning during the month. We take the basins down, hose all the mud back out to the river. We did have a company in town that looked at the preset basin. That is a basin that where we have cracks in the floor that have been there since I don't know when. That way, in hopes of getting some information back from them on some ways that maybe we can rehab that basin and get what we need out of it without having to do a total replacement of it. That basin holds roughly 3 million gallons of water. So we have a gravity filter bid that we'll talk about. Water crew, we've completed all the FIDO leaks. We had that company in town back in May, June that did the acoustic listening on our valves and meters to pinpoint leaks. They came back in into September and finished up that on some areas where we didn't have access to valves. And after we had completed some of the repairs, we have gotten through all those leaks that they found. We do have some areas where we replace sections of main, replace the main rather than go in and do repairs. So we did some work up on Ernest Street. It was probably November that finished out that. The crew also finished replacing a water main crossing of Bear Creek down by the Ely Street Bridge. We had a water main there that blew up about 2 years ago. And so we went in and did all that with our own crews, and they were able to start that in September and get that completed in early October. Wastewater plant, just no rain, low rivers. We had low flows. If you look at the historic numbers, we're down about that 2.8 million gallons a day average flow, which we've seen, we saw in September and October of last year. But you'll see our max day was down to 3.4, 3.5, which is really low compared to what we've seen historically. As part of our annual maintenance program, we have our pump supplier come in and do maintenance on all of our submersible pumps. During that, they found one on the raw water intake, two of them out at lift stations, and one of them at the wastewater plant that needed to be rebuilt or replaced. And so we're in the process of working through that now. Wastewater, we quit feeding chlorine and thus sodium bisulfite. We're only required to chlorinate the effluent between April 1st and the end of October. That's deemed the recreational season per our permit, and so that's the only time we do that chlorination. Wastewater, we had no SSOs. We did some manhole raising in order to provide a smooth ride for vehicles. We typically wait until after the streets are paved, and we go and use our Mr. Manhole system, cut out around the manhole, raise it up to grade, and then pour concrete around it. We wait till we get a number of manholes. That way we can rent a machine. Typically, we'll rent a skid steer. This year we only had 27 manholes, so we did it with our own. But just to save the wear and tear, we've rented one in the past. But over on Paris Gravel Road, I mean, that was a big one. You know, the city shut the street down, did the paving. We came in, I think it was on Thursday or maybe Friday morning, cut the manholes, poured them, and that way they could open the street back up that afternoon. We had metal plates over top of them, and if you drive over there now, it's relatively smooth compared to the potholes that were left last time. So it's something that it provides a better riding surface, but then it doesn't impact our manholes either. Those divots cause stress to be induced on the top of the manhole chimneys and breaks them down quicker, thus resulting in larger potholes. Technology related, the big one is we received most of our meters that we've ordered. And so we're able to get out and replace the electrical meters as part of our meter swap. And now we're to the point where we think we'll have all those meters changed out by the end of the year. I think that's all I've got in my report, unless you all have any questions.
All right, do we have any questions for Matt?
No question, just that's good news.
It is, yeah. All right. And if we could proceed to projects, please.
Water treatment plant roof replacement, that is something that I think it was July when July board meeting that we had you all approve that. Due to material delays, they weren't able to get in there and start until October. And then they're hoping to get that wrapped up this week. That is, again, replacement of the asphalt shingle roof with new standing seam metal roof. They redid the ventilation accesses, and then they're also putting new gutters and downspouts on that. So I don't know if you got time, drive by the water plant and see that progress. It's a big difference, and hopefully it'll be there for years to come. Gravity filter media replacement, we'll talk about that later. Downtown SSO elimination, something we've been working with Trek Design Group for the past few months is putting together a package to where we can bring in a lining contractor and line some of the areas outside the levee that see high I&I flows during periods of high river. I met with the engineer on Friday. He had he was in town looking at some of the manholes and some of the access points to try to tighten up that scope of what areas we wanted to try to do first so that we can put a project together that meets our budget constraints. And so hopefully we'll get on the contractors list around the first of the year, and maybe this next summer we'll get that lining project started. Hydraulic model, due to some personnel issues, that project's kind of drug on, but talking with the engineer on Friday, they're going to meet with Alex next week on finalizing that and hopefully have that completed to where we can utilize the hydraulic model of our sewer system should somebody want to add on or expand, new subdivision come online. We'd have that information available to see what the other impacts are, not necessarily just in that localized area, but downstream, and make sure that we're not overloading a pipe or seeing where we need to make improvements into the future. North Street storm sewer, hopefully DNR has that review completed this week, and then the engineers plan on putting that out to bid with bids received, I think, right after the first of the year. Berry Creek Dam spillway improvements, we went out with requests for qualifications from engineering firms to design that, and we got 6 responses in, and we're in the process of going through and selecting an engineer. We'll be coming back to you hopefully in December with a contract for approval to complete that work. And then on Indian Mound substation, we're continuing to work with BHMG to get that project plans completed. They went out to bid on some long lead items, equipment, and those bids are scheduled to be opened next Tuesday, I believe it is. So again, we've got that transformer ordered and should be here sometime mid 2024. So. And then the tie line is the connection between the Oakwood substation and the Southside substation. We're in the process of working with the engineer to finalize those plans so that we can go out to bid to have that constructed as well. As part of that, we've been working with MoDOT and the contractor that they selected to do the viaduct replacement. We've been in contact with them. We've already done some minor utility relocations. We had some water relocations. We had a couple of electrical relocations, but we're going to work with them and do some temporary electric service moves and take down some primary line in order for them to safely get in there and do the necessary construction that they plan on doing. Last I heard, I don't have any definite schedules at this point, but it would be after the first of the year before they start. And then, I can't remember, 180 or 220 days construction window.
They were doing test force today.
What's the impact on traffic?
You're not going to have viaduct to use, so
So they'll do a runaround?
I believe the plan is for normal vehicle traffic to use South Main. My understanding is it won't be used for semis, and they'll bring them in, I'm guessing Route V and in like they do during high water conditions.
I believe they are cognizant of it, and so that MoDOT's trying to take and do the pillars and some of
Yeah,
those
they're trying
things
to shorten the
before
time frame that
they
which
actually
it's
tear down the viaduct. So they're going to try and leave it up, available as long as they can. Then they'll demolish it, build it. So they're trying to minimize that impact, but it still is going to be an impact.
There's going to be some phone calls.
Yes.
Put MoDOT's phone number up.
There you go.
On a big sign.
That's all I've got as far as projects reports, unless you all have anything.
Any questions about the project?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And moving along through unfinished business. Paul, please.
All right, well, before we get into the financial report, we do have Williams Keepers online virtually with us out of Columbia to go ahead and present our audit for fiscal year 2023. And one thing I'll point out, just recall that fiscal year ended back in June. That was the same fiscal year that we saw capacity jump from $70,000 in our electric fund to $3.4 million. And so as anticipated, we did have a substantial net loss in that fund, just like we tracked all throughout that year. But we have Amanda Schultz with us today. She was the partner on the job and has been the partner for the 4 or 5 years now that we've used Williams Keepers. We appreciate all the work that they do for us and just how easy they are to work with. And so I'll go ahead and turn it over to her now to present the audit.
Hey, thanks, Paul. I like your vest, by the way. So representing Williams Keepers, yeah. Can you guys hear me okay? I apologize. I'm joining via audio and video on 2 different devices. So can someone give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. As Paul mentioned, I'm Amanda Schultz, and I'm an audit partner at Williams Keepers in Columbia. We appreciate the opportunity to perform the audit. I believe this is our 4th year auditing both the city and the Board of Public Works, as well as to present a draft of the financial statements to you all today. So would you like me to pull up the draft of the financial statements on the screen here so you can see that instead of my face and my kiddos behind me? I'll go ahead and do that real quick.
It's hard to see it. It's on page 42 of your packet.
Yeah, it starts on PDF page 42 in your packets or materials, but I think you can see it on the screen now. Alrighty, so the first 3 pages of the financial statements are the independent auditor's report or the opinion letter. This is the only part of the financial statements that is our responsibility as your auditors. Management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements. Although we prepared them, it is a common practice for us as independent auditors to do so. Management has reviewed them and will approve them before they're issued in the coming weeks. Our responsibility is to plan and perform the audit to obtain reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free of material misstatement. We used our judgment in determining how to audit the Board of Public Works again this year. During our planning process, we performed a risk assessment by reviewing balances, transactions, processes, and controls, and we focused our attention on areas where the financial statements could be misstated. So I think I say this every year, but I also think this is a good reminder. This means that we did not audit every balance or every transaction, but it means that we did do enough work in order to be able to give an opinion on the financial statements. We expect to issue an unmodified or a clean opinion on the financial statements. In our opinion, the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects in conformity with generally accepted accounting principles or GAAP. And another reminder, this is the best opinion that you can get, and it means that the users of your financial statements can rely on them. The first page of the opinion letter here does include an emphasis of matter paragraph, and that just clarifies that these financial statements only represent or present the Board of Public Works information and not the City of Hannibal, which we also audited again this year. In the coming weeks, we'll issue combined financial statements that include both the Board of Public Works and the City of Hannibal, in addition to issuing these standalone financial statements for just the Board of Public Works. On page 3 of the opinion letter, it refers to other information. There is required supplementary information included in the financial statements. That includes the management's discussion and analysis on pages 4 through 7, and the pension and OPEB schedules on pages 27 through 29. This information is required by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, which sets GAAP for governmental entities such as the Board of Public Works. It's required by that entity to be included in the financial statements, but we as your independent auditors are only required to apply certain limited procedures to that information. So as a result, we don't actually express an opinion or provide any assurance on it. There's also supplementary information that includes capital asset schedules on pages 30 and 31, the schedule of investments on page 32, and the schedule of top 10 utility customers on page 33. This information was actually subjected to various audit procedures, and as a result, we'll express an unmodified or a clean opinion on it in relation to the financial statements taken as a whole. And then last but not least, the other information includes comparative statements of operating factors on pages 34 through 36. This information was not subjected to any audit procedure, so we won't be expressing an opinion or providing any assurance on it. But lots of good information included within these financial statements. Again, pages 4 through 7 of the financial statements are the management's discussion and analysis. And this information was prepared by management to provide an introduction to and an overview of the financial statements from the Board of Public Works perspective. So moving on to the actual financial statements, the statement of net position or the balance sheet is on page 8. This statement presents each fund's assets, deferred outflows of resources, liabilities, deferred inflows of resources, and net position as of June 30th, 2023. At a high level, total assets decreased by $4.5 million, primarily due to depreciation expense that was incurred on capital assets in the current year. Deferred outflows of resources increased by $381,000, and deferred inflows of resources decreased by $860,000. Those are both due to the GASB 68 pension plan and the GASB 75 OPEB plan balances that were reported by the plan's actuaries during the year. Total liabilities decreased by $1.9 million, primarily due to debt service payments made on long-term debt in the current year. And the resulting total net position decreased by $1.6 million. Of the Board of Public Works total net position of $79.3 million, and this is found at the bottom of this statement, $48.3 million represents your net investment in capital assets. So that is capital assets net of the related debt that was issued to acquire or construct or otherwise finance those assets. $6.1 million is restricted for debt service and the GASB 68 net pension asset, since that can't be spent. And the remaining $24.9 million is unrestricted and may be used to meet ongoing obligations to your customers. Moving on to the next page, the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position or the income statement is on page 9. This statement presents each fund's operating and non-operating revenues and expenses for the year ended June 30th, 2023. Total operating revenues were stable. They increased by about $220,000, but total operating expenses increased by $6.6 million, primarily due to the significant increase in the electric fund's capacity cost in the current year, as I believe I heard Paul mention previously. Total non-operating revenues and expenses decreased by $2.1 million. That is primarily due to the $1.8 million gain on the sale of capital assets in the prior year. There were no gains on any sales in the current year, and the increase in interest expense on long-term debt in the current year. So the resulting change in net position was a decrease of $1.6 million. The next, and I believe last statement, is the statement of cash flows on page 10. This statement presents each fund's financial statement information in a different format by essentially reporting where the cash came in and where the cash came out, or cash went out during the year. The total net change in cash and cash equivalents was a decrease of $9.7 million during the year, primarily due, again, to the significant increase in the electric fund's capacity costs in the current year. Next are the notes to the financial statements. Note 1, which is on pages 11 through 14, is a summary of significant accounting policies. There was one change in accounting policies during the year, but this did not have an impact on the financial statements this year. So nothing was accounted for or reported differently in this year's financial statements compared to prior years. So as a result, there were no additions or significant changes to the remaining notes on pages 15 through 26 this year. Finally, as I mentioned at the start of the presentation, the financial statements conclude with the required supplementary information, the supplementary information, and the other information. Just real quick, I wanted to note that we will also issue 2 letters as a result of our audit. The first will be the auditor's communication letter, and this letter consists of comments about the audit process and its results that we are required by our professional standards to communicate to the governing board of the auditee, and the Board of Public Works serves that role. Highlights from the letter will be that during our audit, we did not note any transactions that we considered both unusual and significant, but there was one change in accounting policies as GASB 96, which relates to subscription-based information technology arrangements, was implemented during the year. But as I mentioned previously, this did not have an impact on this year's financial statements, but it will going forward, just really as a result of the timing of some of the agreements you all have for your IT subscriptions. We found the accounting records to be in good order, but we did propose a few adjustments again this year. We usually assist with the GASB 68 and some of the other GASB adjustments, really just due to timing of when we get information from the actuaries and other third parties. We did not have any disagreements with management on accounting or auditing issues. We had no difficulties in performing our audit, and we felt we received full cooperation from everyone we worked with. So we appreciate Darren, Paul, and their team's assistance in facilitating another smooth audit this year. And then that second letter that we will issue as a result of our audit is the management letter. Just a real quick highlight from there. Although the scope of our audit was not directed towards providing an opinion on internal control, it was directed towards providing an opinion on the financial statements that I just covered. We still considered internal control as a basis for designing our audit procedures. Based on the limited procedures that we performed, we did not identify any material weaknesses in internal control. So that is essentially what that letter will state. So are there any questions about the draft reports specifically, or about the audit in general? Any questions I can answer for anyone this afternoon?
Any questions? I don't think we have any questions.
Okay. Well, again, we appreciate the opportunity to perform the audit. Everyone was great to work with again this year. And I certainly appreciate everyone's time this afternoon. So thank you.
Thanks, Amanda.
I do have one comment for the board. Take a significant look at page 33/78 and it basically gives consumer data. It's just something of interest to know along the way. And it's buried in, 30 pages of stuff.
All right, well, are we ready for the financial report then?
Yes, please. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I did want to just say thank you again. I know she's off now, but thank you to Williams Keepers and their team. And then definitely thank you to our staff and everybody that helped out provide information and answer questions while the auditors were here. Like Amanda said, it was another successful audit, so we were appreciative of everybody's help with that. All right, financials for October. We'll jump right in and start with the balance sheet like we always do. Total cash was down just slightly from the month before. We did have substantial decrease in current assets. We had an audit entry, or our Prairie State MISO receivable that was hanging out there from last year's audit that we went ahead and removed for this year's audit. It had already been accounted for, which caused that decrease. And then we also had a decrease in long-term debt, primarily due to those entries that Amanda mentioned, where we record our pension and OPEB deferred inflows and outflows. So those are annual entries, and those calculations are done by an actuary. So utility-wide, our total assets are down just slightly from last month and down about 6.2% from a year ago. Next page, looking at our income statement. Compared to budget, we did have net losses in both the electric and water funds for October. We finally had revenues that were right at about budget for the electric fund, but our purchase power costs in that fund were about $211,000 more than budgeted. And so in the water fund, the carbon expense that we recognize quarterly was recognized in October. That's a $98,000 expense, and we did not budget for that to be recognized until December. And so that was the primary reason for the operating expenses that were $163,000 more than budgeted in the water fund. Lastly, the sewer fund finished with a net income of $144,000, and that was primarily due to lower operating expenses in that fund. Flipping down to the next page, if we compare October of 23 to October of 22, basically all of the reasons that there were differences compared to budget are the exact same. One item to note is that total revenues were up about 10.7% utility-wide, and that's primarily due to the rate increases that took effect in October in the electric and water funds. So year-to-date now, in fiscal year 2024, the electric fund now has a net loss of $1.2 million for the year. That's more than the budgeted net loss of $776,000. This is, like I mentioned, the first month with our rate increase, and so we have some ground to make up there in the electric fund, but we'll be tracking that closely throughout the rest of this fiscal year. The water fund now has a net income of $120,000. That's quite a bit behind as well. We have a budgeted net income of $413,000 through October. So that will even out some as that carbon expense is recognized in the budget. But the primary driver for the loss in the water fund is actually our maintenance costs with the city. We had the FIDO assessment that was done, and so we've replaced a significant amount of water main. And whenever we do that, the city does saw cuts for us and then bills us for it. And so we've had to, with all the FIDO leaks and the normal water main repairs that we've done, we've had quite a bit of extra costs with that. Fortunately, we are able to capitalize some of those costs for some of the bigger jobs, and so we'll be looking at that closely over the next month or so to see if we can capitalize any of those instead of expensing them. And the sewer fund, lastly, now has a net income of $233,000, which is also behind its budgeted net income of $418,000. Primary reason there is lower revenues in that fund. If we compare this year to last year, utility-wide net income is about $1.8 million less than the same time period last year. Really what's going on there is the electric fund. At this point last year, we had about $4 million of Prairie State MISO credits. So far this year, we've only got $1.3 million. And really the main reason for that isn't necessarily a bad thing. We just had a lot more volatility in the electric market last year, and whenever we have volatility, we're able to sell that excess power from Prairie State back into the market at a higher premium. Since we've had less volatility, a little bit more stability this year, we haven't recognized the same amount of credits that we did a year ago. Not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just affected our revenue a little bit. And then we have our normal items on there, our check register for everything written in October, cash reserves and historical, our current investment listing, and then our key financial ratios on our dashboard. And then one last item I did want to clarify on here real quick. We had a question come up a month or two ago, or maybe longer than that, from somebody kind of about our fixed customer charge. Might have even been John Ling that had asked it, but I just wanted to clarify on that real quick. So basically, we have on your normal bill, we have our usage charge, which is billed based off of your kilowatt hour usage, which you can use more or less of from month to month. But that fixed customer charge is a flat rate from every month, and the idea behind a fixed customer charge is that we have fixed charges as a utility every month that we are required to, or that we have to recoup, and those would be things like our employees, the meter costs for all the meters that we have around town, our billing system, our accounting system, even our audit would be a fixed cost. Those are things that no matter what the weather does tomorrow, we still have those costs to recoup no matter what. And so because of that, because we don't have control over those costs, we need a fixed portion of that bill to be able to recoup those costs. And so I think the question was a little bit in line of how do you determine what's reasonable between what that fixed cost should be versus what the usage charge should be. And what we do there is we have an outside consultant that does what's called a cost of service study for us. And what they do is they look at every single customer class in our system, and they determine what it costs to serve each customer class. And the Stormwater Committee kind of looked at this as well a little bit. This is specifically talking about electric, but they would look at, what does it cost to serve the residential class, the commercial class, the industrial class, and then is the rate that you're charging, is it recouping that cost? And so they put that analysis together for us and then put that into a report with recommendations one way or the other. We then, when we do our budgetary process every year, we look at that as well as a management team, obviously from a higher level, not quite as detailed as the consultants, but we look at that just to determine, has there been any significant changes in that cost to serve that class? And so an example would be perhaps the large industrial class added a significant amount of load. We wouldn't necessarily want to spread that out among all of our customers. We'd want to recoup that from the large industrial class. That hasn't happened, but that would be an example of where we would want to make sure that everything was fair there. And so with the rate increase that we did here back in October, we allocated 50% of that increase to that fixed customer charge. And the reason being is what's been our primary driver here the last couple of years. Well, it's been inflation. It's been the cost of a transformer. It's been a supply chain. It's been those fixed costs that no matter what the weather does, we still have to recoup those costs. And so that's why we allocated more of that rate increase to that fixed customer charge rather than to the usage charge. So just wanted to clarify on that real quickly. And any questions on the fixed customer charge or anything else on the financial report?
I have one brief one. You mentioned in the report 71% of the capacity is paid for. When does that terminate? In other words, what's the last?
Yeah.
Is it the end of the fiscal year or the calendar year?
That was when for capacity, they call it a planning year. That runs from June 1st to May 31st. And so when we hedged for the planning year 2024, we were required to pay for, cash-wise, 71% of that up front. And so we actually paid for it back in April or May before the planning year started in June. And then we're now recognizing it throughout the year as we actually technically use the capacity. And so we actually had a couple of contracts that were just for the summer only, so those have come and gone. We've used all of that up, but we did have some that were also for the entire planning year through May.
So that's what you're referring to for the future, the 10-year kind of hedging?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, that would start June 1st of next year. Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Paul.
Paul, on the customer charge, is that something that is static for a budget year, and does it get approved in the rate sheet?
Yes, we cannot change any type of fee, whether it be the customer charge, usage fee, without coming to you all first, going through that rate hearing process, and then having a public comment period. When I say we evaluate it annually, we evaluate our schedule of rates and fees annually just to make sure everything's fair. And if we did determine that a change was needed, we would come to you and then go through that process to get a change made.
But it's the outside company that does the analysis to say, okay, here's all your fixed infrastructure, and to pay for it, you should charge this.
Right.
Cool.
Yep.
I also had something on your first paragraph of the financial results. You may have said it maybe in code that I don't understand, but it says current assets decreased significantly due to audit entry to remove Prairie State receivable. Mm-hmm. Can you expand on what that means? Or you may have already, sorry.
Yeah, no, I can expand on that. So we had a receivable that was specifically in what was called a Prairie State receivable account of about $800,000 from last year's audit. Well, we accounted for that this fiscal year in our normal accounts receivable account. And so that Prairie State receivable account was just hanging out there. but we'd already accounted for it. So basically, we had a double counted receivable on our books, and so we just took that off there from the previous year's audit.
Okay, great. Any additional questions?
So on the water fund, and I can't remember, I think it was the electric fund also, will the budget be increased next year to add, like in the water fund, to add that $98,000?
That's a great question. What we did is we tried to get, I guess fancy is not the word, we tried to budget for that expense. Instead of taking 12 years of carbon expense and budgeting for it every month, we tried to time out exactly which month it would fall. And so we budgeted for it to come out in August, and then December, and then I think in March, and then in June. Well, what happened is it's already came out in July and then now October. And so that the budget hasn't actually recognized that second carbon expense yet. It will in December. So the total amount that we'll pay for the year is still going to be the same. It's just that we actually recognize that expense before we had actually budgeted for it. But no, that's a good question.
That makes sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't think we got any more questions.
Okay.
All right, moving right along. Thank you very much, Paul. Moving to, next item would be Darren with the Stormwater Funding Ballot Initiative.
Thank you very much, Speaker. We have with us tonight 5 members of the Stormwater Action Committee. And with that, we would like to I'd like to present to you the budget language, the ballot language that has been put together to take to the people in April of 2024 for a funding mechanism for our stormwater. It has not been an easy road. A year ago, we had a ballot language that came to you based on gross area of a parcel. What we found out is that was going to harm people. That was going to take some people that had some very large parcels, and it was going to destroy them. It was going to tax them to the point where they would no longer be able to function with their agriculture, etc. There were some people that were going to be seriously harmed. It wasn't going to work. And so we pulled that back and said, how are we going to do this? And we went and we invited some of the people that were absolutely interested in making this happen, interested in making it fair, making it as transparent as possible, making it as equitable as possible, and making it to where it would take and meet the requirements and needs of the Board of Public Works for creating a stormwater utility. They've had well over 10 meetings. They have asked questions. They have done everything they can to make it as fair as it could be. Some of the decisions that they were able to make, they said to avoid crushing anyone, this is going to be a fixed fee. Now, we've already heard some pushback that it's based upon an electric meter. Well, that has nothing to do with water or stormwater. It's a fixed fee based on an amount of energy that's used, which gives the person who lives at that parcel the ability to kind of control whether they're in a tier or a second tier, and they can actually manage the way they make decisions and improve or decrease the amount of stormwater fee that they might be taxed upon. We considered whether or not to include not-for-profits. If we were to go that way, we would probably have some legal battles, which we would very likely lose. Therefore, they have said, let's not put the not-for-profits into this mix. They came back to us and they said, all right, you're wanting to have $4 million a year. This was based upon engineering information from Black & Veatch. And we said, and when I say we, you as a board, you said, all right, let's back that off and let's go to $3.5, they may be $3 million a year. And so those fees were brought down a little bit so that we could be just as gentle, I guess would be the word, as we can on the coming tax that's going to be implemented so long as it's passed. The other thing they've looked at is let's wait a year. We don't want to pass the tax in April and then people don't have any way of controlling what they're doing starting January 1. So we're not going to have that tax hit till 2025, and that is also in the language of the ballot language that you have before you. all of these things they have cussed and discussed several times, in that they've tried to make it just as fair. This has not been easy. And so with that, the ballot language is before you. Ethan, you have a comment of the ballot language itself needs to be amended by taking out a couple of items. Ethan, do you want to address that?
Yeah, it was sections 5 through 7, which basically directs the county clerk, Marion County clerk, how to run the election. Generally, city procedure is that we leave that out of there, just since the county clerk runs it, we kind of leave that discretion up to them entirely. If that's included into the ordinance or into the language, then that might become a problem if for some reason they're not able to fulfill what we want, what we've asked for in that ordinance.
I would entertain any questions, but I'd also say, I don't know if Larry, if you want to add anything to what's been said. John, I'm going to leave that up. President Ortworth, I'll leave that absolutely up to you to determine what you'd like to do to proceed. If you have any other questions of myself.
Yeah, if any of the established committees got any questions or input on that, please speak up.
And I'll sign the form.
Sure, if you just push the button there and make it green.
Thank you. And we do have, as Darren mentioned, 5 of the. We started out with 15 of us, and then the working committee got down to, I think, 13, maybe 14. And after we finalized what we wanted to propose and established to get the voting public educated, we need to form a campaign committee. So out of the group that came up with this proposal, we have 12 of us that are working on the campaign committee. Yours truly, my name is Larry Craig. I've been selected to be the treasurer of the campaign committee. Tom Lennon is the assistant treasurer, and Julie was it Walsh? It is our committee secretary. We have established a campaign committee with the Secretary of State, the state of Missouri, the Missouri Ethics Commission, which is required. We have established a checking account with a very little amount of money. Members of the campaign committee pulled out some money to get the checking account open. But major fundraising has not started because we needed to know whether or not we were going to have a ballot issue. This resolution that's before you, and some of your board members attended our meetings, is to going before, with your approval tonight, we'll go before the city council tomorrow for a first reading. I heard the word amendment, so I'm wondering what might be amended in the language of the resolution. I figure it's just technical stuff. At least I hope it is.
It is purely technical. I believe they can make a motion to accept it with the edit of removing
Paragraphs 5 through 7.
paragraphs 5 through 7, and that would cover it.
What
The paragraphs 5 through 7,
what page on the resolution?
it's going to be page 3 of the resolution. Let me make sure. Hold on a second. It is judges. So section 5, correct, is the election shall be conducted by several judges appointed to serve at the election. That's a county issue. Polling places, that's a county issue. That's section 6. And section 7 is the county clerk is hereby authorized. So those are the 3 things we're going to take out and let the county worry about. So,
But we would, for us to be able to do our job on your all's behalf, or on this, I would say on your behalf as getting a funding source for stormwater, that the board would have funds to be able to repair and maintain and develop. We need your approval of this resolution to get it before the city council tomorrow. Tomorrow would be the first reading. The second reading would be the first meeting in December, which I think is the 5th. And then we can go forward from there. But we would ask you to adopt, as amended, this resolution. And then we would ask, if I can, on behalf of the committee, ask that you, as the members of the Board of Public Works, their statutes limit what you can do as far as a board providing funds to help in this campaign issue. You can't do that. But there's nothing, in my opinion, I'll yield to the attorney, but in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with you using your voice as you're out there promoting this. We're doing this so that you have financial resources to be able to repair stormwater. So we would be counting on your support, and if you would like personally to help finance, we would accept those funds so that we can buy yard signs and that type of thing. We're not asking the board to provide board funds to support it, but we would gladly accept any personal funds to help us do our job once we get this past the city council. And Darren and I will be appearing before the city council tomorrow night to propose this and encourage them to approve it, to put it on the April 2nd ballot. And just to emphasize one other thing, and I'll sit down and shut up, Darren mentioned this would not go in effect until the fiscal year 2025, which is July the 1st, I believe. And the reason for it, if we passed it in April, then we're backing up on the people, and we didn't think that was fair. So let's get this fiscal year over with, get it passed, and start with a new fiscal year, and they've got time to plan for it accordingly. And I hope you agree with that being fair. It gives them a little bit more time. It slows things up, but we thought it was fair to the voting public, and hopefully it'll help be a little bit of a selling point. I'll gladly try and answer any questions you have. I appreciate the 4 members that are here. There are 12 of us, and you're welcome to our next meeting, which I believe will be in the conference room of Home Bank on December the 4th, I assume at 6:30. So you're welcome anytime to help root us on and encourage us and give us your moral support.
Maybe you can elaborate. So I'm clear on what's going on here. The city fiscal year is June 30 to 1 year after that. Taxes are collected through the county collector. Bills go out in November, December.
Right.
And those bills cover
the whole year.
The year before that December.
Yeah.
So bills have already gone out for 2023.
You should have 2023 now.
Right.
It will not go on the 2024 tax bill. It'll go on the 2025 tax bill.
That one will be in the mail at the end of 2024.
That's right. No.
25.
End of 25.
This time in 25.
Okay.
2 years from now.
It says in the language, the date that starts is July 1st is the date that Darren picked based on your fiscal year. He would go backwards a year and average your electrical use for that year. What your monthly average was puts you in a tier. If you have an election in April and it passes and you're assessed that same July technically you're going back a year before it was actually approved by the voters. We thought that might cause a conflict. So also, it again would give people time to plan. So we said it'd be better to start it in July of 2025. It comes backwards to after the election. That was the thought.
Yeah, it'll be pretty confusing to prorate that. I assumed that it was going to correlate with the county billing year for taxes. So that to
Well,
me,
it will be
It's
on,
the tax bill,
Right.
but it's correlated with their fiscal year for averaging the cost.
just that might end up getting really confusing. Because people who pay their county tax bill, they pay it for the calendar year.
Right. But that's, again, with the delay, it'll take that into consideration.
Well, there's no
If
mechanism.
people pass it and they know that it's coming the next year, then they can prepare for it as of January 1st on of 2025.
So their first county bill will be for basically half of the intended amount.
No, that's why we're delaying it a year, because it'll be for an entire year.
Calendar year,
Yes.
and not the
We're not
city
billing
fiscal
until the end of 2025.
So the bills going out will go out the end of 2025?
Yeah.
Okay. And will they be for 12 calendar months of the service?
Yes.
Okay.
The fiscal year part is only to actually determine what category that parcel is going to be placed in.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
I would also just add, there's been other questions that this is a tax per parcel. So there could be multiple meters on one parcel. And each one of those meters, wherever it falls in that class, they're going to be billed for each one of the meters that they have on that parcel. Such as General Mills, they have 7 meters. They're going to be billed for every single one of those meters for the parcel they're on in the class they are, which is the industrial. So that would be the same if someone has a parcel, they have an apartment and then a home, there's multiple meters, they will be charged for each of those meters, whatever class it falls into.
and we're also looking at this as an economic development issue for our community. I assume most of you know, maybe you do, maybe you don't. A good portion of our stormwater system, especially in the downtown area, is over 100 years old. And there hasn't been any funds to maintain it. Well, let me put it away. There was funds to maintain it until the legislature passed statutes that prevented you all from using electric funds or water funds to fix something like stormwater. Now those funds can only be used to fix what they were paid for. And we're in a little unique situation. I'm not throwing stones, but we're in a little unique situation of who wants to claim ownership, the city or the board. And that decision has been made. If it's below ground, the council has put it on your all's back. If it's above ground, the city will take care of it with their funding. But it's definitely a funding source that's needed for us to continue to improve our system. We've had some failures over the past several years. We hope we don't have any more, but we need to get funds to get in there and survey the entire system and see what needs to be done and how best it can be maintained and improved.
Oh, no, I 100% agree it's necessary. I just want to make sure I understand, because my understanding last time that I heard anything about this was, for example, you have a parcel that is 5,000 square feet and it's a single-family residence. That makes sense. They have 1 meter. There's another parcel that has 5,000 square feet and it houses, it's a 4-story building, and it houses 35 residents plus there's a house meter. So there's 36 meters on that same 5,000 square foot. So according to this language, each of the individual 35 residents would get the same bill, and then the owner would get the same bill? Or would that be considered commercial? And the commercial meter would be only one charge?
Well,
It'll only be on the parcel. So again, that parcel, whoever owns that parcel,
yeah.
they're the ones that's going to be taxed. This is a property tax. It's not a fee. So we would count all those meters, and that person that owns the parcel would be charged for those 35 meters.
Oh,
If it's rental property, then the landlord's responsible for it.
Yeah, and we know that he'll pass it on to the renter,
well, right, but the landlord will get his bill,
right?
and then each individual.
No, they will not.
Because it's a city.
They
it's a
don't own the
tax.
property.
It's a property tax.
It's
They don't
property.
own property for the apartment.
So when you
Whoever
figure
name is
you're,
on the parcel, whoever owns the building.
But the building will have 36 meters.
But it's up to the landlord then to figure out how he wants to cover that.
Okay, I misunderstood. I thought you said it was per meter on the parcel.
Fees based per meter.
That's how it's calculated,
That's calculated.
but all of it gets put on the property tax bill.
But only the property, only the parcel owner is being taxed.
Okay, so the owner gets charged for 36 meters.
Mm-hmm.
It's his overhead.
Mhm. Okay, so that same square footage compared to the single-family resident, that particular parcel will be 36 times more responsible for each square foot of their parcel than a single-family resident.
Yes.
Well, and I know that you attended a couple of our meetings, and there were a lot of different calculations being thrown around in those earlier days.
Yeah.
But and as Darren has indicated, we ended up going with the utility meter because generally every parcel's got one except vacant land.
And there's a fee for that too.
And
So like I have my residential property and then I bought the empty lot next to me, so I'll get charged a
yeah,
flat rate for my.
there is a flat rate, I think, for an empty lot,
It's
So
about
it is
$8.
Yeah.
something like $8 a month or something like that.
Yes. And while in the language it shows broken down into what it would cost per month, this is an annual tax. So you're going to get taxed that $144. If you're in the lowest residential, that would mean you're getting approximately $12 per month. It's $144. That's what you will receive for your annual property tax for stormwater.
John, what you're doing is running a calculation like most of the committee members did. Pretty quickly, and most of us sat down and said, okay, what's this going to cost? And then and my observation when I attended the meetings was, then they looked at tiering that and saying, okay, how do we make this more equitable across the board? But yes, there will be some people that will pay significantly more. And then the vacant lot issue was addressed. Well, if they don't have a meter, they would pay nothing unless there was some way of collecting. Does that make sense?
No, I'm just trying to rationalize I just thought it was different. Last time I heard it, I just thought,
Oh, the last time you heard it, it probably was different
Yeah.
because we were talking impervious and whether it was rooftops and driveways or whether it was the entire lot. We looked at several formulas, but many of them were very cost prohibitive to the individuals, and we wanted to get something that was, as Darren's mentioned, that's fair and safe and transparent and provides the board a funding mechanism to take care of future stormwater issues that might arise.
Yeah, administratively, It's a little bit more efficient than trying to recalculate impervious area every year too.
Oh, yeah.
Every other year. So.
I went from $1,100 of a tax bill down to $250. I can live with that. But at that first meeting, I was about ready to say, no, I'm retired. I have no way to generate an extra $1,000. But I can come up with a way to generate $250. And that's where the committees, that's where we started butting heads and starting, not splitting hairs, but starting to put this whole package together. Because somebody with a 2,500 square foot house, an impervious straight, and I'm sitting at the bottom of a cul-de-sac and all the street water runs right down through my yard. You know, I'm paying for a lot of things. That's not happening now. I can live with this.
And this formula, if I remember correctly, will raise around $3 million
Annually.
annually.
And that was the other part of the negotiation. Darren came in with a very aggressive plan, and we tried to scale that back a little bit, saying, okay, let's don't work on 3 years, let's work on a 5-year plan, or whatever it's gonna take. And that's where those numbers started becoming a little more reasonable to the most of us as a committee members, as how to go out implementing it and put this together.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna take a little, and there's also debt repayment in that. You know, if you haven't seen it, there's also debt back to the funds that were borrowed and used to help with those. So there's debt replacement in that with there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, we hope, we're asking you to endorse this resolution to get it before the city council tomorrow evening. And we look forward to your verbal support in the future as we all try and educate the voting public on supporting this issue. Any other questions?
I would just really like to thank every member of the Stormwater Committee. That there was, I would simply say there wasn't a wilting lily in the bunch of them. They all were expressive, and we had lots of questions, and they had a big stone to lift, and they've done a great job, and I thank them all for the time. And frankly, I'm still going to expect more of them as we go forward. So,
One last comment, John, is your opinion or what you recall of what was going on is exactly what we have to worry about educating the voter not to think in terms of.
Mm-hmm.
Because that can be a failure in itself without even, that's that silent killer to the vote.
Sure, no, I agree. I thought I heard it one way, but one of the takeaways of this is that the only place that you're really going to get revenue from is each individual person. If you hit Walmart with it, they're going to pass it along. If you hit Watlow or General Mills with it, they're going to pass it along by paying their individuals less, their workers less. So the only place that really revenue ever comes from is people's income. So businesses don't magically generate money. They get money from people who buy stuff. And doing it this way spreads it out amongst everybody, all the people who make income.
And it is a community problem.
Oh, yeah, no question. Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you to the committee. Appreciate your work.
It was a lot of work.
We're glad to do it. We just need to get it over the finish line in April 2nd.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
we have a
Motion.
All right. Do we hear a motion to
Motion to approve the ordinance as presented with the modification of sections 5 through 7, page 3, deleted. Is that correct? As we pass this on to the city council.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Hey,
Do we need a roll call? Not if he's got a name.
Did you say nay?
I did.
Okay.
Okay. Sounds like motion carries. Moving right along to the gravity filter rehabilitation.
One of the integral parts of our water treatment plant is the gravity filters. Those have been in place since the plant's completion back in 1924. They've went through some minor upgrades over the years. Most recent was a new anthracite cap in the early 2010s. And so time came, we need to replace that media. We also wanted to get more media depth to provide us better filtration. That meant replacing our under drains that were old clay tile under drains. And so early 2022, we began working with Black & Veatch to come up with a project scope. We submitted anticipated budget numbers to MDNR in hopes that we got ARPA funding for it. Late last fall, we found out that we did not receive that ARPA funding, so we've been working with them to develop a set of plans and get this project out to bid. We put the project out to bid October of this year, open bids last Monday, the 13th. We received a single bid from Martin General Contractors for replacement of the media and also painting of the basins while they were down. Since we don't take them down very often, we felt this was the opportune time to do that. And so the base bid was for $860,400. The alternate bid was an additional $213,100, and that was for the painting. After review of the bids with staff and with Paul regarding the finances, it is our recommendation to move forward with the bid from Martin General Contractors for the amount of $1,073,500.
The one bid issue, of course, is the issue of responsibility. Are we meeting that?
We've gone through every step required for an open bid. We can't get any other. We can only get one contractor to respond to that. We have met the requirement of our purchasing and our bidding, so I think we're still good.
There was two contractors interested in it. One just felt like it was beyond their expertise, I think, and withdrew. I mean, they went through they pulled a set of plans, they reviewed them, they tried to line up subcontractors and put together a bid. They just felt uncomfortable at the end and ultimately did not place a bid in. So Martin General Contractors, they did our 2015 water plant upgrade. They're the ones that are doing the roof replacement at the water plant right now. They've also done multiple other filter rehabs for a couple of water districts and cities down around St. Louis. So they're more than capable of doing the project. The engineers found nothing wrong with the bid they submitted. Felt it was in line with the going rate, and their recommendation was approval as well. So,
okay. Motion to approve that bid for Martin General Contractors.
Here a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bill, are you there?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Computer delay.
Yes. On to the next.
Second item I got for approval is coating of Clarifier 3 at the wastewater treatment plant. This is something we've had in the budget for the past couple of years, trying to get coatings to preserve and extend the life of those assets. This clarifier was constructed in 1993 with little or no maintenance since that time. We did have a bearing failure back in June of this year that resulted in it being down for about 3 months. During that time, we were able to bring the engineering firm in. They were able to better assess the condition of it. What we're looking for is a polyurea coating on the concrete portion that would seal it up. It'd be similar to what would be applied to a manhole, because I mean we're dealing with the same materials. And then also they did include a bid for coating the metal portion of the structure as well, just to extend the life of it. Again, we only received one bid on that. It was for base bid was $275,000. That was for coating the concrete and the weirs and the overflow chamber there. And then 425 included all of that in addition to the metal structure as part of the clarifier. In review with staff and Paul on the finances, we're comfortable with moving forward with a $425,000 one because we'll have it down for an extended period of time. Now is the time to do it. And it'll be a good indication on as we move through the rehab of clarifiers 1 and 2 in the future as well.
Motion to approve the bid of Midwest Infrastructure Coating for $425,000.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Comment is, I don't know anything about clarifiers, and I'm definitely going to go with your expertise. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right.
Okay, thank you very much.
Final item I have for you tonight is just surplusing of some items we found in the warehouse that we've had a lot of that we are no longer using. These gland packs they were provided with a lot of the water parts and pieces that we received over the years, and we've since switched to using a retaining gland, so we don't have to have concrete poured every time. It can allow us to put the water line back into service a little bit quicker. And so we've accumulated quite the stock of these gland packs and just various other materials. And through going through the warehouse over the past year, we found we've had these items, and we're just looking for your approval on surplusing them so that we can go through our normal disposal channels.
We have a motion for that,
So moved.
and a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks
Matt.
very much, Matt. And next, we have comments from the city attorney.
I don't have anything.
Nothing. Okay. Any general discussion? Having heard none, I suggest we adjourn to, do I have a motion to go into closed session?
Pursuant to section 610.0212 of the Missouri Sunshine Law, the meeting shall convene in closed session to discuss real estate, admitting board members Darren Gordon, Matt Mudslinger, Paul Trahell, Courtney Harris, and Ethan Matchett.
Second.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank
All in
you.
favor?